then everyone goes off in their own corner. Everyone takes their ball and they go home, okay? So to answer your question, you are correct. I do not like to be bullied or pressured into saying things or believing things that I do not believe. I find that terminology degrading, okay?
Why?
Because I'm not a birthing person, okay? I'm a woman.
What's wrong with being called a birthing person?
Well, first of all, not all women even have the capacity to get pregnant. So it's degrading to them to be essentially to have their womanhood questioned if they're not
What a point.
if they're unable to have kids to begin with. But also, I mean, look, this is the thing that annoys me about this entire issue and conversation, because they'll turn around and they'll say, no one's calling you a birthing. Okay, does someone need to call an individual who finds the N-word offensive the N-word in order for him or her to find it offensive or degrading? You get what I'm saying? Someone needs to be called that word to find it problematic or to have an issue with it. And besides which, I was called that, okay? Yes, in a medical setting. But this is a doctor who knows I'm a biological woman. Call me a woman. But I had a conversation with that doctor. Why did you feel the need to call me a birthing person? Like, where did that come from? And in California, medical providers are basically like told that there will be penalties if they don't use the proper terminology or if they're caught doing anything discriminatory toward the trans community. Now, if they're actually doing something discriminatory toward the trans community, I think medical providers absolutely should face consequences. But the idea that we should change all of our terminology, even toward women who want to be called women, in order to be inclusive is ridiculous to me. Now, if a transgender person wants to be called that, fantastic. I respect it. I'll do it. I'll engage in it. But I think in the context of my relationship with my doctors, I want to be called a woman. It's not that difficult. It is my personal preference, okay? That doesn't mean that I in any way believe that transgender people should be treated differently or that they should be discriminated against or that they should not live lives of dignity. I have had an entire career defending them.
So here we have Ana Kasparian from the Young Turks. She's appearing on the Patrick Bet David podcast. And yeah, as you can see, they're talking about one of the contentious issues of our times, which is, the whole trans issue, trans ideology, birthing persons, calling somebody a birthing person instead of a woman. And Anna comes up, Patrick Bet David asks her with a straight face, do you mind being called a birthing person, or whatever question he asked? And she says, well, yes, I do mind, because I'm a woman. Call me a woman. That's my preference. But, she's already, despite the fact that Anna has been on a redemption arc the last year or so, she's still getting herself tangled up in her libtard progressive nonsense. She wants to have everything. Instead of just saying, no, this is nonsense. If a person wants to call, if a person who was formerly a man now wants to call himself a woman, fine. I don't think any of us have a problem with that. But I'm not going to call you one. If you want me to call you something, tell me what your name is, and I'll call you your name. Yeah, I'm not going to, I don't care what that name is. But, when you start denying reality, that's like the whole underpinning of leftism in general. It's basically a denial of reality. It's a denial of how the world works. And when you start denying reality, it can sort of go on in some ways. You can deny reality, and if you have a strong society, and it's a homogeneous society, and it's strong, and it's moral, you can deny reality in certain ways. You could claim that building civilization is a denial of the reality of living in savagery, like people did for for thousands of years. Yes, it is. And to deny reality, you have to create a society and civilization that can do that. But you can only deny reality to certain levels and to a certain extent and for a certain amount of time. When you start denying basic biology and try to reorganize your society around it, well, then it's just not going to work. The wheels are going to start coming off.
Supporting them, and this one issue led to ridiculous outrage among a fringe component of that community. They are not representative of the entire transgender community. And for that fringe component, if they think that they're going to shut me up and force me to say things I don't believe, they've got another thing coming. Okay? I'm going to say what I think. Every single time.
Do you think they're crossing the line a little bit and it's getting a little bit too ridiculous in certain sectors?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
They turn people off with it. And again, it is a fringe component of the transgender community. And they don't even realize how counterproductive they're being.
And who's allowed for that to happen? Who's been a part of that becoming a reality? Who do you think?
Look, I think most people want to do the right thing. Okay? And so they want to be as accepting and tolerant and inclusive as possible. And they don't want to come across as being in any way discriminatory. And I respect that. I think that it comes from a good place. But they shut their brains off sometimes and just go along with things without considering maybe some of the unexpected consequences, how others might feel about what they're engaging in. I think that there's this conflation with the gay community and the transgender community, because think about it. Like, I think a lot of people on the left think of the trans community the same way they thought of the gay community, right? Like, yeah, why not legalize gay marriage? Like, what's wrong with that? Who's it hurting? But when it comes...
Yeah, the problem with trying to be nice and not discriminatory and to be inclusive and all these things is that can work, again, in a functional, high-trust, homogeneous society or community. But when... Again, it comes back to this denial of reality. If you're not strong enough to prevent those who would subvert your society, if you're not strong enough to exclude them, to not play into their madness, then your society will eventually get subverted, as we are seeing. We're seeing it happen in real time in the United States and in the West in general.
Comes to some transgender issues, there is a lot on the line, right? Like when we do talk about kids transitioning, you want to make sure that we have a system in place where there's a proper protocol implemented to ensure that we're not transitioning kids who might not actually be transgender.
You think it's okay to transition kids under the age of 18, even if the parents consent?
What do you mean, medically?
Medically. Anna, you seem very smart to me, and I think you have common sense.
Yeah, I do have common sense. I think it's a very difficult question to answer, okay?
No, Anna, it is not a difficult question to answer at all. The answer is no. That's the answer. The answer is abso-fucking-lutely not. How is this even an issue? I crash my head against the wall, when I see people debating this issue, whether you shouldn't even be even discussing these things with children, much less discussing whether, you should transition them socially or transition them, God forbid, medically, with drugs and horror of horrors, mutilating surgery. It's absolutely outrageous. Ana Kasparian, again, she's tying herself completely in knots with this, despite the fact that she has been saying some good things last few months, last year even. She's still totally infected with the mind virus of liberalism, and it's disgusting.
Okay? I think that it is a problem when certain states completely ban it, because there are instances of, let's say, teenagers who identify as transgender, they're legitimately transgender, and I don't want to cause harm to those people, right? I think it's a decision that should be left between the parents and the doctors. But at the same time, there are certain things going on where I do worry. Like, I don't know if you guys have read about the Tavistock clinic in the UK that's shut down. And the reason why it's shut down is because it just became this...
Okay, that's enough of that. Yeah, the Tavistock clinic was shut down. You can look it up yourself. Absolute madness. Just the fact that it was allowed to even continue for as long as it did is a stunning indictment of just the Western degeneracy and lack of moral courage, and yeah, a stunning indictment of all of us, society at large in the West. Kudos to Patrick Bet-David for obviously being disgusted with Ana Kasparian's reply there about, I think there's, she seems to think there's, ideas, or there's cases where transitioning children is appropriate. Absolute nonsense. Good on Patrick Bet-David. I'm glad PBD shook his head. No, shouldn't even be discussing it. I am very disappointed, but Ana Kasparian, she has been on a bit of a tear recently with some good takes, but her head is still so far up liberalism's ass and the progressive ass that I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe she'll change her mind on this too. Who knows? But absolutely outrageous. Enough of that. Anyway, if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. Notification bell, all that good stuff. Really helps me make more content to help grow the channels.